Welcome, gentlemen, well arrived, gentlewomen, and it's raining outside. Come inside to watch this video. Gentle children, today we are talking about Mythic Plus, because we have already gone through checking out how things went in the raid testing in the beta, so what's left is to look at how things have been going in Mythic Plus. We are going to be looking at the Mythic Plus keys being logged in the beta, starting from the highest level tested, which was the +10 level, and then we go down to +9, and then +8, and then we stop around +7 in terms of high levels of keys tested. We are trying to look at the recent testing because of the changes, the nerfs rather, that happened to a few specs. For example, Fire Mage has been nerfed by quite a bit in damage, as well as Unholy Death Knight. The Sun Lane Unholy Death Knight build has been significantly nerfed, which will have an impact as well in Mythic Plus, as well as Marksmanship Hunter, which had Symphonic Arsenal nerfed by 40%, so images like these won't really happen anymore. So we are checking out how things are going in Mythic Plus to see which specs are being played the most, if they're being played, which hero talents are they choosing, if they are different, for example, from the ones chosen in the raid, and then in general how has the performance been in Mythic Plus for these specs. The first in line, even if we just talked about getting nerfed, is still Marksmanship Hunter. Because overall, Marksmanship is still the, better performer across pretty much all of the keys seen. Even the keys post-nerf, for example, of today or yesterday, Marksmanship Hunter was still the one performing overall the best. Yes, Marksmanship continues to play with Sentinel, even after the nerf didn't really change much. There is one major difference though, as you see here. It's no longer just about proccing trick shots with your multi-shot to do most of your damage with your ricochets of aim shot and rapid fire. Now, your main damage source is going to be multi-shot. That's because over time, time and time again, multi-shot has been buffed in damage. Precise shots make your aim shot buff your next multi-shots. Then you have Bullet Storm, giving you stacking increased damage to your multi-shot every time you ricochet your aim shot or your rapid fire. You have the brand new overpowered talent, Small Game Hunter, literally giving you 100% more multi-shot damage, and then Eagle Talons True Focus is no longer a choice node with calling the shots, so you can take both of them, which also gives you more damage with multi-shot. As well as spamming more multi-shot in Sentinel hero talent gives you Symphonic Arsenal damage. So all of this together makes multi-shot your now new source of heavy damage for Marksmanship. To be fair, we can still say that most of the good performance of Marksmanship is still somewhat related to the small pulls you are doing in the beta. Because you're trying new things, you don't know the dungeons, you're pulling 5 to 6 mobs at a time, Marksmanship Hunter is reasonably target capped. Both its multi-shot has reduced damage past 5 targets, as well as your trick shots ricochets, which you get every time you use multi-shot, which is right over here, is going to give you 6 target AoE damage. So overall, this extra good damage of Marksmanship might still have to do with the lower amount of targets you are fighting right now in Mythic Plus in the beta. Now, besides Marksmanship, the other good performing hunter is actually Survival, that has been doing quite well with quite good damage. Now, similar to Marksmanship, they also play with Sentinel, but unlike Marksmanship, they don't do nearly as much damage with Sentinel. Right, Sentinel is not like 40% of their damage like for Marksmanship is, mostly because their Symphonic Arsenal is procced by Butchery, which is not casted nearly as much as multi-shot for Marksmanship is, but overall, right now, their Wildfire Bomb AoE damage is still very high, and they are performing quite well in the beta, together with Marksmanship for Hunters. For the other class that was doing very well in the beta, which was Warlock, right now, the more played spec overall is actually Affliction. Affliction is the one that right now is being played more and also doing overall better in terms of Warlocks. Yes, they're all playing with Hellcaller, they're all playing with Wither extra dot damage. As we mentioned when we talk about destruction, the heavy nerf to Seeds of Their Demise for them, it wasn't nerfed for Affliction. So they still gain Tormented Crescendo, which is a free cast Malefic Rapture, insta-cast Malefic Rapture, which is still very good for the spec and also in AoE, not just in single target, and Wither plus the extra damage on Wither of Blackened Soul and the extra cooldown of Malevolence is still very good in Mythic Plus as well for very good AoE damage. True, it's a bit sad to see a dot-based spec have Agony plus Unstable Affliction and even Haunt doing so little damage, and most of it comes from your Spender and from your Wither, replacing Corruption. But right now, that's what the spec is doing in Mythic Plus. The only other one that is being played for Warlock right now is Destruction. It's not doing nearly as well as Affliction, and also after the nerf, of course, their Wither, as we can see, is still very powerful, but they're not gaining nearly as much power as they were before, after their Seeds of Their Demise combo of spawning more Overfiends was nerfed. At the moment, at least, we are not really seeing any Demonology Warlocks being played in Mythic Plus. Now, a bit of a mention now for Arcane Mage, because we will be talking about Fire Mage, of course, as it was the wildly overperforming spec in the raid. Arcane right now has gotten some pretty good performances in Mythic Plus, playing around the Spell Slinger hero talent with the extra damage of Splinter Storm and Arcane Splinter. It is actually doing quite well. Yes, you know, Arcane, similar perhaps to Marksmanship, might be benefiting as their main source of damage right now in Mythic Plus is Arcane Barrage, which is, you know, quite a bit target capped, of course. So again, it could be one of those situations where fighting in a beta of Mythic Plus with more conservative pulls, it goes to benefit specs that can have chunkier damage on 3, 4 or 5 targets, as opposed to specs that might excel more if you're pulling 15 mobs, for example. Now, it's hard to put a proper, judgment on Fire Mage, which has been doing quite well. It has been reasonably competitive, but it has been nerfed. And we haven't gotten that many logs post-nerf of Fire Mage. We have seen more, for example, Arcane Mages being tried. Perhaps it was Mage players moving out of Fire for a bit after the nerf. The difference is that compared to the raid version, where Fire played Sun Fury in the raid testing, they are playing with Frostfire when it comes to AoE in Mythic Plus. The biggest reason for all of this AoE goodness of Frostfire is really just a couple of talents. Yes, you do gain stacking damage in terms of Fire and Frost Mastery, which can help you with damage increase, but really what matters is using Meteor, casting Comet Storm at 150% effectiveness, and then reaching maximum stacks of your Frost Mastery gives you Phoenix Flames, a free cast of Ice Nova, doing twice as much damage. As well as, whenever you proc this, the cooldown of Meteor is reduced by 5 seconds, so you can cast more of this. The result is that in AoE, as a Fire Mage, you get a lot of procs of Comet Storm and Ice Nova for free, which are all both good when it comes to AoE damage. That's the main choice of Fire Mage, which are doing pretty well right now, but they have also been nerfed. Talking about doing quite well, the other spec doing quite well still is Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest, doesn't matter if it was pre-nerf or post-nerf, it's still doing quite well across multiple key levels, even in the 9 and 10 and plus range. The only one disclaimer is that the majority, and by majority I mean pretty much all, of the Shadow Priests are playing with one hero talent, which is Void Weaver. And the one thing worth mentioning about Void Weaver is that the damage of Void Blast has been nerfed by 25% after, for example, this keep, which was on the 16th of June. So this damage would be reduced practically by 25% post-nerf. And all of these priest builds are not bothering to go with the expanding Halo Archon build. They were all playing with Void Blast, which has since then been nerfed. Another one, perhaps the last of the very good performing specs we have seen in the beta testing of reasonably high keys in Mythic Plus, was actually Augmentation Evoker. That's right. Augmentation now with, I guess, working logs, but also with more damage in their hero talents, is actually getting to the top of the meters quite often in the beta of the War Within. Now, funnily enough, this has been reached with both of the hero talents. This is something we have mentioned for preservation when we talked about healers. They were able to play both of the hero talents quite evenly in terms of performance, and Augmentation was doing the same. The Chrono Warden, which is the same well-performing hero talent for preservation, is also being played by Augmentation Evoker with their extra damage to Living Flame. But Scale Commander is also a pretty good choice. Now, you do see immediately the difference of the eruption damage when playing Chrono Warden and then the eruption damage when playing Scale Commander. That is very simple because one of the features, the main feature of Scale Commander, is to significantly empower the damage of your eruption. And then the rest of these spells are going to be about giving you more and more ways to proc bombardment on the enemy, which is the other part of the damage increase of the hero talent for Augmentation Evoker. What is perhaps the strongest point, however, of this Scale Commander hero talent is the cooldown reduction you can give to Breath of Eons, who normally has a 2-minute cooldown. So if you play it at 6:54, it should be back up at 8:54. Instead, it's used 45 seconds later. And then after using it at 7:40, you get to use it at 8:30, which is 50 seconds later. And then you get to use it at 9:20, which is also 50 seconds later. All of this is pretty much thanks to Wing Leader, bombardments reducing the cooldown of Breath of Eons by 1 second for each target stack. And it's very powerful because of the power of Breath of Eons as a cooldown for Augmentation Evoker, both defensively as well as offensively. And overall, between the two, even if Chrono Warden is being used, the power, just the power of Breath of Eons, especially since we talked about how things are more chill and laid back in the beta, when you start thinking about a higher Mythic Plus key with more coordinated groups pulling multiple packs at once, the value of being able to use multiple Breath of Eons back to back becomes much more important compared to what it is in the beta. So it does look very powerful, unfortunately, of course, because nobody wants to see another season of Augmentation being meta, but for now it definitely looks like it's going to be this way if nothing is done about this hero talent. But these were pretty much the overall better performing as well as more popular overall specs seen in the beta testing of Mythic Plus keys. As said, we looked at the roughly the higher level of keys being done in the beta just to see, some more competitive players and their performances. The only other mention could be given to Ret Paladin. It was hard to mention anything about Ret since they are playing with Templar, which is practically the same playstyle as you are now, except that every Wake of Ashes you also empower the ability to be reused as a Hammer of Light and gain a bunch of free damage with your hammers, but besides that, it plays just about the same as before. These were overall the more played spec. There were very few traces of certain specs in particular, like Balanced Druid, for example. No surprise here, but Elemental Shaman was also MIA. As mentioned, Demo Warlock wasn't really being played compared to Affliction and compared to Destruction as well. BM Hunter also practically not being played. A complete vanishing, no pun intended, of all of the rogue specs, literally non-existent, as well as not that many warriors, but still, still a few times here and there you could see some warrior picks, mostly Fury warriors, not arms in Mythic Plus. So this was the recap of what has been going down in the higher level of Mythic Plus keys in the beta so far, up to, as mentioned, plus 10. So this is what we have been able to observe so far in the War Within beta when it comes to the performance as well as the popularity of specs and their choices of hero talents, for example, when it comes to Mythic Plus. So this was the recap for today, which I am being told by my staff it's a Tuesday, actually, not a Monday. So with this out of the way, we are now leaving each other. Thanks, of course, as usual, to all of the dear supporters that are also supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, Thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow. And in the meantime, yeah, I am one of those guys. I like the rain, the smell of the rain, even the sound of the rain. I like it less when I actually have to go out, though.